Hey everyone, Brian Zane here to give you my thoughts on what went down Sunday night in Seattle, Washington with AEW's first ever Wrestledream pay-per-view. It's Tuesday morning here at Regret HQ. Me and some friends drove up Sunday morning to go see the show in Seattle, and then we spent the night, drove back on Monday, and I'm here to kind of give you these thoughts. It's not going to be, a blow-by-blow review like I normally do. I'm not going to be giving star ratings on these matches per se, just kind of my overall feeling about them. It's very similar to how I reviewed WrestleMania this past year. We had a really good time in general at the show. All the wrestling was really strong, we felt. Our one general knock on the show, this is just kind of something that's occurrent in all AEW pay-per-views, it seems, it's just the length. Just like, it felt like a long show. It was kind of hard to maintain that energy for the whole evening. And I think that there were, at least two matches you could pick off that show that could have gone to, Dynamite or Collision. And I think it would help tighten the show up a little bit. And besides the issue of length, I think that one other negative experience we had nothing to do with the show itself, was just the people we were kind of seated near at the Climate Pledge Arena. We were in this row, and this guy who was he was right next to Mr. Ulala, was like right here, and then the guy next to him would get up and like go out to the bathroom, presumably like 3 times in a half hour, and like, okay, this is weird. And then, Mr. saw the signs, the storm was a-coming, and Mr. says, we need to go like right now. So we all got up and fled the row, and sure enough, 10 seconds later, it was Puke City for this guy. And so we found a couple rows up, there were some seats, so we just went there to stay away from the pukey drunk man. And we saw over the course of the evening, security and like medical would come and check on him and stuff. Like, why is he not just like gone from this place? Like, he got up to go, they cleaned up, and he went back. And this is like before someone from security came and checked on him. This guy was like falling asleep throughout half the show. I hope he didn't pay for his ticket, because I don't think he was asleep for most of the event. So he was gone for a bit. He came back, and then he vaped as the show went on. I mean, man, this guy is just, maybe he has won at life. I don't know, but he seems to be, you have to ask him if he thought it was a good time. But besides that whole mess, I think it was still a good experience overall for AEW Wrestledream, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the show right now. The main show begins with MJF defending the ROH tag titles by himself against the Righteous. I was happy for Vincent and Dutch getting this spot on pay-per-view. I've been a fan of theirs since they formed in the original Ring of Honor, so it's been cool to see them kind of get this spot here. MJF, addressing the rumors that it was, him who beat up Jay White. We saw the person in the devil mask. He says that someone stole it from his bag, so MJF just carries it around all the time, I guess. And so, but he talks about, he's calling a shot. He says he's going to body slam Dutch, and he's going to shove Vincent's dreads up Dutch's ass. There was the moment where they tried to recreate the whole scene from Misery with the wooden block and the chairs, and MJF grabbing the yam bags to prevent it from happening. And the facial expression on Vincent as he's selling it with the chair in his hands is one of the funniest things all night. That body slam thing, man, MJF was setting it up all match. He tried like 3 times, and on the 3rd time he finally gets it, and of course the crowd pops for it. I mean, I love how MJF has been able to kind of capture the crowd's attention and vigor with just calling basic ass moves, like double clothesline is on all the shirts they have now, and then of course body slam, and just like a double drop, the kangaroo kick, he pulls that off. So he does the body slam, he shoves Vincent's head up Dutch's butt, so we get the human centipede spot, and then we get kangaroo kick. MJF hits the heat seeker on Dutch, and that's how he wins and retains. It's still weird seeing the AEW World Champion, presumably the top guy in the company, kind of in this spot and this kind of storyline, as entertaining as it is. It's just weird when you compare it to everything else going on in the world of AEW at that moment. Could you picture Jon Moxley in the same position as MJF today? Could you picture Kenny Omega in that spot? I really don't think so. And so it's kind of a weird spot for the championship to be in. That being said, the performers involved in all this are really knocking it out of the park. I still maintain that the MJF, Adam Cole, Kingdom, Roderick Strong thing is some of the best television right now in AEW, some of the best stuff they have on their shows. And hopefully, I was surprised we didn't get much of a storyline progression in what we saw at the end of Dynamite with the Devil Mask and everything on this show. So maybe they're going to keep that going on TV. I'm curious to see where that's going to end up. Katsuyori Shibata had a chance to become a Triple Crown champion by beating Eddie Kingston for his 2 belts on this night, and this was the big strong style matchup in a show that was all dedicated to the memory and the legacy of Antonio Inoki, who got a nice celebration during the 0 Hour event with his grandsons. That was pretty cool. But in a show that's all about, him and his ideas and his legacy, it only makes sense to have the big strong style display match happening here. And that's what this was. It was just a big heavy hitting matchup. Fans were a little leery. I think that the reception to Eddie Kingston might have been a bit different had he not backed out of the Defy show where he was booked last minute. Again, I get it. I understand why he did it. He's hurt. He's got a contract. He's got to fulfill that stuff. It sucks, and it sucks for Defy, and it really sucks for everybody. But I think that hopefully the fans will eventually forgive Eddie for this over in Seattle. But I think it was still a very hard-hitting matchup. They traded strikes back and forth, some really sick-looking shots. The trading spinning back fists near the end was pretty hard to watch at times. Shibata kicking out of the Northern Lights bomb, and then finally another power bomb is what does him in for Eddie to retain the belt. I mean, the fans were still alive for it. I'm not going to discount that. They were still vocal, and they're still overall happy to see Kingston win this one. But like I said, this was a great showing of what strong style is all about. These guys just had a great chemistry together, and they made it look like it hurt, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day with that particular style of wrestling. And like I said, I'm just so happy for Eddie Kingston, and having seen his, he learned so much more about his story, to see him where he is now in AEW and getting this love from the fans and getting that recognition with those championships is really something cool. Speaking of something really cool, like I mentioned in the predictions video, is the rise of Julia Hart as a member of the House of Black. I mean, the way they presented her, especially the last couple of weeks, has been really awesome. That promotional piece they ran over the weekend on social media and on Collision, where she's out in the field with the masks, that was some excellent stuff. Just from not only from a storytelling standpoint, but also the production geek in me also liked a lot of what I saw there. But anyway, Julia Hart here challenging Kris Statlander for the TBS Championship. This is a great match for both ladies. Julia definitely held her own, and even though she is much smaller than Kris Statlander, I think she was able to still present this threat and being able to, really take control for a lot of the match. And of course, having the big, monstrous Brody King at ringside definitely doesn't hurt things either. Looking strong, kicking out of that Blue Thunder bomb. I do think it's weird when babyface champions use rope breaks at the last second for a way to escape a pinfall or a finish. That's what happened when Julia hit her great looking moonsault, and then we get the hand on the ropes, and then there's the tombstone by Kris and the Sunday Night Fever for her to win and retain. Like I said, go check this matchup out because I think it's really Kris and Julia's some of their best work lately. I think is shown in this matchup. I also liked, by the way, was the spot where Julia was going to go for the mist and Kris kind of hits her, so she spits it and misses it. There's still the chance for them to have that kind of spot where the mist backfires, where it's they cover the mouth up and they gag on their own poison mist, blah. 4-way tag match for a future shot at the AEW tag titles. You've got the Young Bucks, the Guns, the Lucha Brothers, and then you've got Orange Cassidy and Hook. Kind of an unfortunate moment happening fairly early in this matchup because Rey Fenix just goes to pick up somebody and just falls down in a heap, seemingly re-aggravating an old injury. He just immediately tags out. You never see him again. I think there were some people who were kind of expecting him to come back because that's almost exactly what happened with Penta in a tag team match recently on pay-per-view, where he seemed to got hurt and then he changed costume and got a new intro. But that did not happen here. No, Rey apparently was legitimately hurt. He said in a statement that it was an old injury that was acting up. And that's really unfortunate timing, considering, he won the International Championship in an impromptu fashion because Moxley got hurt 10 seconds into their match. And now Phoenix is hurt again, and man, that curse, the International Championship, it's kind of a weird vibe right now surrounding that championship, it seems. You get the feeling that there's a lot of high spots that they kind of missed out on because of Phoenix's injury that they were still yet to do. It was still lots of exciting stuff. I'm not sure how much they had to change or revise or call on the fly, especially with 4 teams involved. That's a lot. That's a lot to manage if one person goes down, especially when they're known for doing all those big high spots that you kind of build around. So, kudos to them for making the match still, fine. It was still very much like that kind of Young Bucks, Lucha Brothers, that style, that very fast-paced, high-impact, high-risk style, still very much on display in this one. Cassidy and Hook having chances to look strong. You saw Hook try to get the Red Room locked in a couple of times. A couple of like really sneaky blind tags near the end. One of those is when Hook's got the Red Room locked in. The match ends when the Bucks hit the super kick party and the BTE trigger on Penta. And I guess I can't recall the last time that actually ended a Young Bucks match, because the ending happened. I'm like, oh, okay, well that was the end then. All right then. So the Young Bucks win. They have the future tag team championship match. Like I said, this match was like good in the moment, had a lot of wow moments. But honestly, thinking back on it like 2 days later, it's kind of hard for me to think of any real specific moments that kind of stayed with me in that matchup. Also, stay tuned for Dynamite apparently, when Rey Fenix may or may not defend the International Championship, and we might see Nick Jackson get his first singles gold. You don't know. Well, this next match here is probably going to go down for me as the one that I'm going to remember the most vividly and the most fondly on this show. It's Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. This was a wild match to see live and in person, because, you know, Hangman Page is the babyface by, you know, technically how the story is written, but you're not going to get a babyface pop for Hangman when you are literally in Swerve's house. I mean, this is his home state. Tacoma is just minutes away from Seattle, and so this is basically home territory for him, and the fans were with him all the way. Just the loudest, the most constant "Whose house?" Swerve's house chants even before the match began, and the fans definitely on Swerve's side for this one. And how can you also, you know, how can you not cheer Prince Nana? I mean, this man is having a renaissance now, and he's gotten the dance over, and it's just been so fun to see. Like, you know, we were all doing the dance too. It's infectious. It's amazing, and I don't think it takes anything away from Swerve's act either. Prince Nana's his own guy, and like, yeah, he's like the manager and everything, but he's doing his own thing. Swerve is just the straight man to it and does none of it, and like, but it's not like they clash, and it's not like they don't complement each other. I think it still works really well, because you got Nana's the hype man, and so Swerve is the fighter. And I think him having, you know, doing the "Whose house?" Swerve's house chants as his music was playing was great as well. He definitely had the crowd in the palm of his hand. He could do no wrong that night. But of course, it wasn't just the crowd that made this match so memorable. It was the stuff in the ring itself. These guys put on an amazing matchup, and these guys made it look so effortless, but it was still a very entertaining spectacle these guys had. I love, and I will never forget, Swerve's sequence where he does the roll into the STO, then he, you know, plants off one hand, rolling into the suplex combination. That was a thing of beauty. I love that you've got Swerve hitting the big double stomp on Hangman after his arm's been worked over on the apron, and not knowing exactly where the camera is, doing the dance, you know, as he's in the background while that's all going on. Swerve is still the baddie in this thing, and he tries to win by knocking Page out with Prince Nana's crown, but Page still able to kick out. Ultimately, it takes 2 house calls and a JML driver for Swerve to win this one. You know, the right guy won here. You know, this is the guy with the momentum. It's in his home state. And I think that, you know, Hangman was the right opponent for him. I'm really looking forward to hopefully great things for Swerve after a win like this, because it was definitely one of the top matches of the night, and a huge moment for Swerve here. And yeah, let's just keep doing that dance all throughout the night. Ricky Starks takes on Wheeler Yuta in a match that was made last week. It's kind of the fallout of Ricky's larger storyline with Bryan Danielson and the program that they had since Bryan came back. And Ricky Starks is in a very interesting place right now. It sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but I considered him like a very clear-cut tweener, if that makes any sense. Because he's basically staying himself, like he's consistent in his character and his mannerisms and everything. He even has a heavy in Big Bill and whatnot, but like depending on who he's fighting, he'll get cheered or booed more accordingly. I think he was more of the heel in the feud with Danielson, and here with Wheeler Yuta, he's clearly more the babyface, even though Yuta and Danielson are part of the same team. It's a good matchup. I think Stark's getting to show his technical side against someone like Wheeler Yuta, who's so like pure wrestling based. I think is really cool for him. It's not just about his character, it's also about what he can do in the ring. Like I said, Big Bill did get involved in this thing. He was used as the muscle, but Wheeler was able to kind of withstand his attacks. And then we've got this moment here where Ricky is trying to do the big elbows into the shoulder, and the look on Wheeler's face of just disgust and disappointment, I thought was a great one. Some great facial expressions and body language just all around. The match ends when Ricky is able to avoid avoid some near falls, hits the Rochambeau to win the matchup here. So yeah, good win for Ricky. It was against a very valid and worthy opponent in Yuta. Like I said, it got to show off some more depth to Ricky as a competitor, and a good win for him to get his momentum back after having lost a couple matches back-to-back against Bryan Danielson. Up next, the big dream match on the Wrestledream as Bryan Danielson took on Zack Sabre Jr., another big homecoming response for the home state boy in Danielson here. This was a match that I thought, and I said as much in the predictions video, that it was going to main event. I figured it was kind of a slam dunk because of Danielson and where he is and everything, and the epicness of this first time matchup. But yeah, that was not the case as we all saw. But this is still a fantastic matchup, and I think it was worth every bit of the hype. These guys more than lived up to it. This was just such a masterclass of technical wrestling. Both guys so good at their craft, and you could tell they had a lot of fun, mapping that match out and having that match together, trading the Mexican surfboard spot, like the good wrestler secret handshake spot, the moment where they kind of both have the waist lock with their legs and they're upside down in their hands. They're trading elbows back and forth when they're in the kind of the backslide position. There's so much going on here, and I think that also it was worth going back and watching this on the pay-per-view feed just to hear Jon Moxley on commentary. John here is at his best. He apparently incurred some fines here, but it was absolutely worth it. The combination of Moxley just doing some of the most weird profanity-laced commentary throughout this show and this match in particular, yelling, "Fuck that guy," when he's in the submission. That, and then Nigel McGuinness, who's showing his clear contempt for Danielson and wants to see him lose at every opportunity. And he's like, he stands up, "I want to see it." He wants to see him get beat. He's telling him to retire in the hold and everything. That really added to this story. And that's a whole lot of layers of, character development and just the world building that we've had over all these years in wrestling with these guys. I thought that was some fun stuff for sure. You've got Danielson hitting the 2 Busaiku knees at the end of the day to win this one. And you have the moment where, Aubrey Edwards is officiating. She raises his hand. They embrace. That was cool. It was cool to see them hug it out. The story being Aubrey Edwards was in attendance for Daniel Bryan's retirement speech many years earlier, and the fact that she was there to officiate this big match, that's the magic of wrestling. Sometimes you can't beat that, but easily one of the top matches of the night, worth every bit of build that went into it, just as this dream match. It was not a Wrestle Nightmare. It was a Wrestle Dream. So go check that match out for sure, because it's definitely one of the best you'll see all year. The 6-man tag team match as Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi took on the Don Callis family. This is a match that had a good blend of exciting high-flying action, good just babyface fire from the good guy team. And you also had some comedy as well. You got the moment with Ibushi and Jericho doing the pose in the middle of the ring. You had each team trading, abdominal stretches with lots of assistance on the outside and everything, kind of a tit for tat sort of deal. It's a fun match. Matches like this tend to be chaotic, and it certainly was at times, but I think it was a good balance of that kind of chaos and the fun and the focus. I think it had a lot of good story beats in there, not just for Jericho and Guevara, Jericho and Callis, and Omega and Callis as well. And of course the relationship with Omega and Ibushi. I know there were some people around me and my part of the audience that were definitely shipping pretty hard for the Golden Lovers, and they wanted to see some more story and more moments between them as a team, Omega and Ibushi. We didn't get quite enough of those, I think many people would have hoped. The match ends when Jericho's got Sammy in the walls. Don Callis stabs him in the head with a screwdriver with the referee distracted, and that allows Sammy to get the cover and win for the Don Callis family. So pretty much like I expected, more or less, Guevara getting that win, further establishing his membership into the Don Callis family, his newfound heel run, and just getting more of that heat for the people who are the victims of the Don Callis family, Jericho and the Golden Lovers, and what their reign will lead to, and possible championships, who knows. But I think right now they are still firmly the dominant heel group. Don Callis is the most dominant and consistent heel right now in the company, it seems, in AEW. Hopefully that can result in some more people getting over at his expense eventually. AEW tag title match as FTR defended against Aussie Open, who are the former Ring of Honor tag team champions. This was a pretty solid tag team matchup. I mean, both guys, I see a lot of similarities in these two in terms of how they move and, you know, their fluidity. It wasn't necessarily babyface or heel tag team stuff. It was just like two teams who are doing everything they can and pulling out all the stops to win. So in that, I think that was also fun because it allowed for, you know, both teams to get a lot of love from the fans. I think the fans were pretty much like, it was definitely, I'd say 60-40 toward FTR, but the fact that it was so close was kind of a surprise for me. But this was a good match here. I loved the power and the glory spot that was broken up by Kyle Fletcher diving onto them to break up the pin. The Super Shatter Machine onto Fletcher to end the match, I thought was particularly wild. And the whole build to get to that point was really cool as well. So yeah, this was a great matchup. I mean, all these matchups have been really, really awesome, and the crowd was definitely into all of it. Me personally, though, I was a bit mentally drained by this point after everything that had gone on to the show to this point, especially the last few matches. So I'm apologizing that I didn't quite give it my all mentally, focus-wise, as a fan for this one, because I was just having to recover and gear up for the main event. 2 out of 3 falls match for the TNT Championship. Christian Cage defending against Darby Allin, the hometown hero. And of course, he came out with Nick Wayne and asked him to go to the back. Christian having Luchasaurus go to the back, but Nick Wayne's mother was at ringside, and we still got to see some of that back and forth between her and Cage as the match went on. Of course, the first fall is played very straight here. It's very much like a technical matchup. These two are just exchanging, you know, basic, you know, fundamentals here in this match, this part of the matchup here. And the first fall happens when Darby pulls Christian's turtleneck top over his head and rolls him up to win. And Christian sell after that, and seeing him trying to readjust the shirt, him looking through the neck hole for a moment, I thought was pretty hysterical stuff. It definitely got the crowd alive again after the last couple of matches, really lightened the mood, and just in time for everyone's hopes to come crashing down and their hearts to really break. Because as the second fall happens, the action's on the outside. Christian, there's the whole minute leading up to what's about to happen with Christian dumping Darby Allin onto the steel steps on the outside. I think that build was more agonizing than the actual moment itself for the fans, because at least the moment they finally hits it the way they want to, they can show replays a few times and you're desensitized to it. But that whole minute where Christian is like struggling to get Darby up in a position where he can even throw him, like Darby's sandbagging him or something. I don't know what's going on, if he's hurt or if they're just telling the story, but there's all this fighting on the apron, and God, it looks like it takes every bit of Christian's strength just to get him to where they want to go. And then that first time you see him throw him down, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's going to hit the steps. Oh no, he didn't hit the steps. So there was like this almost kind of aw sound from the audience when he didn't hit it. But like, it was just set up so perfectly and framed that way. And then they do a make good, and then apparently it wasn't good enough, so they do it again off the apron, and that horrific just landing on his arm. It looked so brutal, so painful. Darby, I get what you're doing, man, but sometimes I wonder, I question, you know, what it takes to go through stuff like that. You know, very much in the same way I watch early Mick Foley work, and I'm like, what possesses you to do stuff like that? And Darby's doing things that I think they're elevated from what Foley did in his prime, in many ways. Like that fall on the steps, man. I thought seeing Kevin Owens take a back bump into the steps like that is painful. I think Darby took it to a whole new level with that bump. So needless to say, he is counted out for the second fall. It's knotted up, and well, that's going on. Christian's tearing up the ring. I think me and like 3 or 4 other people I follow on Twitter all made the same joke. Wow, look at him. He's a veteran and he's still doing ring crew. So clearly that joke's a bit old, but he's tearing down the ring and everything. He climbs up onto the turnbuckle and does a frog splash onto Darby when he's on the gurney. Holy crap. And then they make their way back into the ring. They're taking bumps on the wood. Oh God, it was so hard to watch this, and to see Darby kicking out of the kill switch on the wood was something really crazy. Bryce Bryce Remsburg, the referee, takes a tumble, and then you've got Nick Wayne coming back to try and save the day, and then from there, I could just immediately tell, like, oh, here's what's about to happen next, and surely enough, it does. Darby telling Nick to hit Christian with the belt, but no, Nick Wayne betrays Darby and hits him with the championship, helps Christian win the match, retain the championship. They embrace, and Christian like tussles his hair, like a good dad should. I could not believe it. What a place and what a time to turn Nick Wayne, this young, innocent boy, freshly turned 18, and make him this like heel underling to Christian Cage after all that. Man, that is like that. It's gonna be interesting to see what a heel Nick Wayne can do. This was a twist that, boy, the fans did not like seeing that. It really broke their hearts, just kind of like getting the vibe of everything. Smoky, vapey puke guy, you couldn't really tell what he was up to. He actually did wake up, though, for the sixth man, though, so he was very much in good spirits by the end. I think he went through the reverse bell curve. But anyway, fans were brokenhearted about this, and you've got this moment where Sting comes out. He tries to make the save. He gets beaten down when Luchasaurus shows up. So they set Sting up on the ground for the concerto. Oh, they're going to bash the poor Stinger's brains in, but suddenly the lights cut out and we get this video on the screen. And after it says our feature presentation, within like the first 2 frames, everyone knows who it is, because who else has that like physique with that kind of jacket and that gait walking in? It was pretty obvious who it was. Of course, all the speculation being confirmed and being proven correct. Everyone's wrestle dreams were made alive in this moment when the former Edge, the rated R superstar Adam Copeland, made his AEW debut, and much in similar fashion to the last time he made a big return to everyone's surprise, the camera kind of screwed that up as well. But the crowd's going nuts for this. This was a hell of a moment to witness, even if a lot of people thought that this was going to be happening. It was still a surprise people were happy to see. It was a moment that we all kind of wanted, and it happened. He shows up. He takes the chair from Christian. You think he's going to concerto Sting, but he actually hits Nick Wayne. He spears Luchasaurus. He spears Nick Wayne. Christian runs out, and Edge stands tall at the end of the show. Man, this is the rated R era. This was the new era they were talking about. It's Adam Copeland coming. Now, as far as, the impact of Copeland coming to AEW, that is a huge shot in the arm. Do I think Copeland is the biggest acquisition that AEW has had? I don't think so. I think that, when you think about it, especially in the first 48 hours and haven't that much time to think about it, I would still think that, CM Punk was probably a bigger one in that short term. Chris Jericho being one of the first big names to come to AEW was obviously huge in its own right, but this is still a big deal. It's still a huge deal for AEW to get Copeland on their roster because of the credentials and the experience he does bring, the star power he does bring for those hardcore fans. And I think that him saying in the scrum he wants to close out his career with his friend Christian, really, it warms my heart. Who would have known that when we saw them like ships passing at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago, we thought that was going to be the last time we ever saw them together. Not quite. Looks like we're going to get them some more after this. I think there's a lot of great potential for Edge Copeland to do well in AEW, provided he stays healthy. I think it's great. Like I said, they was able to keep the theme. WWE got Jade Cargill and AEW got Edge. I don't think it's a matter of like which move was better. I think both moves are great. It's great to be in a time again where wrestlers can go from one company to the next, and you've got these high-profile people leaving one place and going to the other. That was half of the excitement growing up watching wrestling in the late 90s, was you never knew when somebody was going to go somewhere else. And now I feel like that's really back now. It's getting that way, it feels. And I think that's really cool. And of course, with indie wrestling being far more prolific now than it ever was back in the late 90s, it's just like it just opens up this brand new world of possibilities, especially also with Impact still around. And all these things, there's so many different options now. I think WWE does get a great acquisition in Jade Cargill for what they're looking for, and I think AEW gets the same in Copeland. I think that this is going to lend them some of that great star power in the absence of CM Punk. Who knows if he will ever return at this point to either company, but I think that still, if that's not a possibility, you still have other wrestlers who are, also on that level who can still provide good matches, good moments. And ultimately, I believe this will be a top acquisition. I'm not trying to shortchange Edge or Adam in any of this. I think that it's going to be, Edge has historically been one of my favorite wrestlers. I mean, all the way back to 2000, Edge and Christian, reeking of awesomeness days, that was like my top peak stuff as a wrestling fan, so I'm really excited. I'm not expecting that to come back. I am not one of those people, by the way, who are like, oh, let's get the Dudleys in AEW and let's do TLC again. No, let's not do TLC again. Like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to run that back. We can let these 6 men live out the rest of their lives, not trying to kill themselves with ladders and tables and stuff, especially the Hardys. Like Edge and Christian, okay, they seem to have, their bodies are still, doing well, but keep the Hardys away from it. Let's not do TLC again. We do not need to have that. But this match definitely earned its spot as the main event. I know when it was first announced as such, it kind of surprised me, but this absolutely blew me away in its brutality and its storytelling. Even if you don't include the horrific bump Darby took on the steps. I mean, everything else about this match was so well done and so befitting of that main event status, especially because, Darby being the hometown guy, you've got this connection with Nick Wayne. It was a city where you're going to have a lot of fans who have knowledge of who these people are, and so when these moments happen, they'll be so invested in it that projects well across what the story they're trying to tell. And so I think it was pretty darn brilliant of them to put it there, especially when you're tearing the ring up and having all these crazy moments there. This was truly, and then of course you got Copeland's debut at the end to wrap it all up in a bow. I mean, what a wild ass main event this was if you look at it just from beginning to end and looking at the whole package. And by the way, how crazy is it that twice now Christian Cage has main evented an AEW pay-per-view that then immediately was followed by one or more big debuts. So needless to say, my experience at Wrestledream was a positive one. Being there live, I think, made it better. Generally, when I go to a show live, I'm going to like it a whole lot more because I was there, even if some people watching on TV or whatever think that it was not that great, but the live experience always makes it better. So, I mean, take that into consideration when I give my grade here. I think I would probably give the show an A- overall. I think that it was, all the matches absolutely delivered. Might there have been a few too many of them on the card? Yes, absolutely there were. But if you can get past that and just look at the quality of the matches and how engaged the crowd stayed for most of it, I think that this was just top to bottom a really powerful show. And it shows that it's not just spot fests, it's not just flips or whatever. There is story there. There is storytelling in these matches and in these feuds. And I think that this was a show that really highlights some of the best of that. I loved the Danielson Sabre match. Swerve and Hangman was one of the best matches of the night. You of course got this 2 out of 3 falls match. It was a really strong show, top to bottom, with an ending that's going to have people talking for a long time. And I think that at the end of the day is what you really want in your pay-per-views. So I think that really my only gripe about the show was the length. Everything else, though, I thought, the right people won. I think that the matches kept everyone's attention and they were, I think, hit all the right beats. And overall, yeah, definitely an enjoyable time. But what did you think of Wrestledream, folks? What did you think of Adam Copeland making his AEW debut? And what are some of your dream matches for him now that he's in this company and seemingly headed toward a match with Christian Cage down the line? I want to hear all about it in the comment section below. Be sure to hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret if you haven't yet. Hit that bell icon to get all the notifications. Well, folks, by the time this video drops, we're going to be one day removed from a video I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have to think about it. My look back at Ken Shamrock in the WWF. But until then, I'm Bryan Zane, and I'll see you next time.